morning, doctor. How are you?
Good morning, I'm good.
What are we talking about today?
How do you know if you have fatty liver?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you've been wondering this. You've been dreaming about this.
That's right.
It's coming to you in your dreams.
No, but it is something, though, that is the diagnoses for this are way up, though, aren't they?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of things. Probably more people are getting overweight and people are getting older and things happen over time. But what's interesting about fatty liver is it doesn't have a lot of symptoms. I mean, you really don't know you have it. I mean, it's hard to figure it out.
And so, given that, then what sort of symptoms would even get you to the doctor? Why would you be?
Well, you'd be worried about it if you felt like you were at risk for it. And the people, we've talked about this before, the people that are at risk for it have more abdominal fat. They'd be known to have insulin resistance or pre-diabetes or diabetes. They have high triglycerides. So those are the type of people that are more apt to get fatty liver. And we're not talking about the alcoholic kind. We're talking about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so if you go to your doctor and they do blood chemistries, they'll have liver tests. The AST and the ALT are the liver tests from the liver cells. And sometimes they'll be elevated. And they may say, oh, it's probably just because you have fatty liver or something like that. But they don't really know that without making sure. I mean, some people actually have hepatitis C or some other liver damage from a medication that may be making their liver tests go up. So you can't just assume that's what it is. I mean, most of the time it is. If it's been elevated a long time, your liver tests have been a little bit elevated for a long time, it might be that. But you usually need some kind of imaging study, and that would lead to an ultrasound of your liver or a CT scan or an MRI to look at your liver and sort of see what you think is going on. So if you do that, and then it looks like fatty liver there, you really still don't know how serious it is. Because we've talked about the different stages of fatty liver disease. Just the fat itself is not necessarily a problem. But if the fat gets inflamed, irritates the liver creates scar tissue. The scar tissue messes up the liver, and then you get cirrhosis, which is just advanced scar tissue in the liver. You don't know where you are in those staging processes without a liver biopsy.
So the fatty liver itself can lead to inflammation, just crowding it out, or something.
Yeah, we don't know who gets that. A lot of people have fatty liver, but not everybody goes on to get the scar tissue. So you sort of want to have a way of figuring out who we have to watch more closely, who we have to be aware of their liver. And that's where the new machine, the FibroScan, comes in, which is relatively new, invented in France about 3 or 4 years ago. It actually is an ultrasound, but it doesn't give a picture. It's a sound wave through the liver, and by the speed of the sound wave, it measures how much fat there is and how stiff the liver is. If the liver has a lot of scar tissue, it's going to be stiffer. The sound wave is going to be different if it goes through. So we have one of those in our office, and we actually screened about 50 people for fatty liver on Saturday. We had a fatty liver day or liver screening day, and we got real fast doing it.
Yeah.
But
that's a lot of people one day.
It was a lot of people, but out of the 50, over 3/4 of them had something wrong with their liver.
Really?
Which is sort of scary to think about. We had, 21 had fatty liver and 17 had NASH. NASH is when you get inflammation in the fat. So NASH is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. So hepatitis is not hepatitis, viral hepatitis. It's fat hepatitis. It's the fact that the liver is inflamed. We talked about the itises last time, but the itis, hepatitis, hepa means liver, itis means inflammation, steato is fat. So steatohepatitis is inflammation in the fat in the liver. And that's what leads to the scar tissue and leads to cirrhosis and the need for liver transplant down the road for some people.
So what happens to you if you have a fatty liver? I mean, what can be, the cirrhosis leads to what? I mean, how does that?
Well, cirrhosis leads to different things. One, the liver makes a lot of different kinds of substances. It makes proteins, it makes clotting factors, it metabolizes drugs. It takes care of everything in your body practically. So if your liver is not working, a lot of things will happen. You won't feel good, you might bleed more severely, you get backup of the veins in the liver, so you get varicose veins in your stomach and esophagus, your spleen gets big, and the spleen starts grabbing little pieces of your blood and holding them and not letting them out. That's sort of weird, but that's what happens with a big spleen. You can bleed from the varices in the esophagus. That's the dilated blood vessels in the esophagus. And then since your liver's not making protein, things leak out of your blood. You can get fluid in your abdomen, and so it's not a pretty picture. And the other thing
especially for all those going to school right now.
So even if even if you have a liver transplant, you can still get fatty liver in your liver transplant because it's the same process for all of that. So you really don't want to get cirrhosis, and you really don't want to get a liver transplant. You'd rather just fix it now.
As with many other things, are we coming down to a genetic side of this?
Oh, of course. So if you have family members who have had cirrhosis or died of cirrhosis, they never drank alcohol, even though everybody accused them of doing it, but they never did, it was probably cirrhosis from fatty liver. And cirrhosis doesn't mean alcohol. There's an alcoholic cirrhosis and there's a non-alcoholic cirrhosis. But cirrhosis is the stage 4 fibrosis. So we count on the FibroScan, there's different ranges for different types of fibrosis. So early fibrosis, stage 1, then 2 and 3 are the middle ranges, and they probably can all be reversed. Stage 4 probably can be reversed also, depending on how severe it is. But stage 4 is also known as cirrhosis. Stage 4 fibrosis equals cirrhosis.
And has this been an education also for the medical community? I mean, you talk about accusations of that. I would imagine that's the first thought too for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think people don't understand that it's a serious thing. I mean, they told people they had fatty liver 20 years ago. Of course, there's not a lot to do about it other than lose weight back then. There's a lot of medications for diabetes that actually help fatty liver, and then we're doing a lot of clinical trials on fatty liver. That's why it's sort of out in the front now, because there's probably about 30 compounds being developed to prevent the inflammation or improve the inflammation, so it doesn't destroy your liver.
Some real promise to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think 2 or 3 drugs really are doing good. They're far along in the pathway.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back with more with Dr. Kajian Lucas here too. We'll find out more about studies, also about the next diabetes school, how you get signed up for it too. With Sugar Talk with Dr. Kajian Lucas, more coming up in just a moment.